All right, today we're jumping into an ancient story that honestly feels like it could have been written yesterday. It's this really powerful story about resilience, about losing everything, and about what can happen when your faith and perfect timing just collide in the most unbelievable way.
So let me just ask you this. What if doing the right thing, the thing you were told to do, meant you had to walk away from your house, your land, your entire source of income, and not just for a little while, but for years? Would you do it? That's the question right at the heart of this whole story.
Okay, so to really get our main character's journey, we've got to understand the world she was living in. We're in the northern kingdom of Israel, and it's a time of huge prosperity. But, with all that wealth came a really dark side. Deep, systemic injustice.
Yeah, this slide really lays it out. You've got the Northern Kingdom, which was wealthy, had all this great farmland, and then you've got the Southern Kingdom of Judah, which was way more poor and rugged. But all that prosperity up north created this massive gap between the rich and the poor, and, well, injustice was just running wild.
And we're not talking about small stuff here. The abuse of power was just out in the open. There's this infamous story about King Ahab. He wanted a vineyard that belonged to a guy named Naboth. Naboth says no. So the king's wife just has Naboth framed and executed so the king can take the land. That was the kind of thing that was happening.
But into this corrupt world, some people were speaking out. You had prophets, like Amos, who were just crying out, demanding that justice and righteousness should flow like a powerful river. They were directly challenging the powerful people who were taking advantage of everyone else.
And it's right in the middle of this kingdom that we meet our hero. She's a wealthy woman from a town called Shunem, and a simple act of kindness she performs is about to set off a chain of events that is just, you won't believe it. So, she sees this prophet Elisha passing through her town pretty often. She recognizes he's a man of God, so she and her husband decide to build a little room on their roof for him, furnish it and everything, just so he has a place to rest. A totally generous act, no strings attached.
Well, Elisha wants to thank her for her kindness, so he tells her, in a year, you're going to have a son. But see, she and her husband were old. The idea seems so impossible, so out of the blue, that she basically says, please, don't give me false hope. Don't mislead me like that. But sure enough, a year later, just like Elisha said, she gives birth to a son.
So, years fly by, this miracle child is growing up, bringing them so much joy. And then, the story takes an absolutely devastating turn.
One day, he's out in the fields with his dad, and he just cries out, my head, and then he collapses.
They rush him back to his mother. She holds him on her lap, and by noon, that impossible gift, her precious son, dies, right there in her arms.
But here's what's incredible. Instead of just collapsing in grief, she takes action. She has this fierce, desperate faith. She carries her son up to Elisha's room, lays him on the bed, doesn't tell a soul he's died, and just gets on a donkey and rides for hours to find the prophet. Her faith is so powerful that Elisha comes back with her and, miraculously, brings her son back to life.
So she's literally gotten her son back from the dead. You would think her trials are over now, right? Nope. Her faith is about to get its biggest test yet.
Sometime later, Elisha comes to her with a new, and honestly a jarring message. He says a terrible 7-year famine is coming, and his instructions are crystal clear. Take your family and leave the country. Go live somewhere else for 7 years.
And let's be real, 7 years is an eternity. In the ancient world, if you just up and left your land for that long, you had pretty much zero chance of getting it back. Anyone could just move in and claim it. So this command was basically telling her to accept losing everything she owned.
And here's a really critical detail. By this point, her husband, who was already old, isn't mentioned anymore. It seems she's a widow now, which was an incredibly vulnerable position back then. And yet, with no one to rely on but her faith, she doesn't even hesitate. She just packs up her son and goes.
So 7 long years pass. The famine is finally over, and the woman comes back to Israel. And just like she probably feared, her house and her fields have been taken over by someone else. Her only option, and it's a total long shot, is to go straight to the king and appeal for justice.
So just picture this scene for a second. A widow with no powerful husband, no lawyer, no legal claim, walking into the royal court with just her son, about to ask the most powerful man in the kingdom for everything back. The odds are not great.
But inside that court, something unbelievable is happening. At the very second she walks in, the king is talking to Elisha's servant, a man named Gehazi. And the king has just asked him, hey, tell me about all the amazing things Elisha has done.
So just as Gehazi is telling the king this incredible story about how Elisha raised a young boy from the dead, the woman herself walks in. Gehazi looks up, and he's completely stunned. He just blurts out, "My lord the king, this is the woman, and this is her son, the very one Elisha brought back to life."
I mean, the timing is so perfect, it's just mind-blowing. It could only be divine. The king is now literally face-to-face with living proof of the miracle he was just hearing about. He is completely floored, and he immediately issues a command.
And this is the part that gives you chills. The king doesn't just say, "Okay, give her the land back." He appoints an official to her case and says, "Give her back everything she owned, and calculate all the money her fields made for the entire 7 years she was gone, and give that to her too."
Just think about that. Her one act of obedience, the act that looked like it would cost her everything, actually resulted in her getting back way more than she ever lost. She got her property back, plus 7 years of income she didn't even have to work for. Her total loss was turned into this unimaginable restoration. You know, this ancient story leaves us with a really powerful question for our own lives. When we're going through our own seasons of loss or uncertainty, when it feels like doing the right thing is only costing us, what does it look like to really trust that maybe, just maybe, behind the scenes, a perfect moment of restoration is being lined up for us in a way we could never plan for ourselves?